Did you know that IT workers are 50% more likely than other office workers to report negative effects from working remotely? Well, in a recent survey conducted by Ivanti, IT reported longer working hours and greater tech problems about twice as often as other tech workers. And nearly 1 in 3 said they had a colleague quit due to burnout. It seems like the everywhere work revolution, a revolution they helped make possible, is actually pushing IT workers to burn out. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Abbott, and you're listening to Executive Summary, a podcast where we explore the latest research in IT, security, and the future of work, and what it all means for your business strategy. Today, I'm joined by Dmitriy Sokolovskiy. Dmitry just left a 5-year post as CISO at Abbott Technology to return to his startup roots. He's currently advising a number of cybersecurity startups, including Audience First, where he's the principal CISO advisor and lead instructor. And today, Dmitry and I are going to break down what is causing this massive burnout problem, and more importantly, what we can all do about it. And let me set this up. In today's discussion, we're going to reference recent research from Ivanti. The study is called Defending IT Talent: How Everywhere Work Impacts IT and What You Can Do About It. And of course, this study is part of Ivanti's ongoing Everywhere Work series. We surveyed 1,800 IT professionals and C-level executives across the globe to understand these challenges. Dmitry, welcome. Lot to cover today.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me. It's going to be a fun conversation for sure.
Yeah, let's start with that topic of burnout and mental health. IT experiences more negative effects from hybrid work than office workers. That's evident in the study. In fact, IT workers are 50% more likely to report these negative effects, more than twice as likely to report longer hours, and almost twice as likely to report more tech challenges than your average worker. But despite this, again, only 16% say they want to work in the office full time. So Dmitry, as we think about these conditions in the general IT worker professional population, the demands and stresses are higher than ever. Where's this leading? It doesn't take a seismograph expert to see where this is headed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is just going to continue to expand. In some ways, the way this started was unexpected with COVID and with some of the additional things that were happening in the world. But at the same time, it should have been expected. This is where technology is moving to. I mean, we're talking about flying cars and we're talking about, robotic kitchens. This is just another step in the evolution. I really enjoyed the 16% that said that they want to work in the office full time, right? So the people actually want to stay home. It's actually we're more efficient, we're more effective when we're working from home. That isn't the problem. The problem isn't working at home. The problem is that we didn't prepare correctly for working from home as part of the increasing complexity in digitalization and that whole digital transformation that's been happening. All that is adding work, not working from home.
Agreed. And then the other part of the study goes into the workload itself. So not only being, prepared, to your point, but a huge influx in work. And in fact, the study concludes 3 in 4 IT and security professionals report increased workload, 75%. Yet only 8% of organizations are prioritizing, automation of repetitive tasks and other tools to help alleviate the burden. So huge increase in work, not much prioritization on tooling, and hybrid work is massively increasing the IT organization's workload. But the IT senior leadership just isn't prioritizing solutions at the same pace. So historically, IT organizations have managed primarily with more or less resources, people power, right? But these conditions that they're now dealing with and having to manage networks and devices and access and security, it's too complex to do with just people. You got to have tooling and solutions. So in your view, what's holding CIOs back from investing in more automation?
That question kind of ties all of these things together, but it's important to understand some of the theory behind it. Ironically, no one ever thinks about theory when talking about IT. It just has to work, right? There's got to be, it's just this better work. IT and right after IT InfoSec, did for business something very important, allowed business to become faster, cheaper, more effective, more efficient. Digital transformation for most companies that did it, even those that didn't do it very well, it still was an improvement to how business operated. It introduced technical capabilities to the business that weren't available before. In a way, Excel spreadsheet replaced manual spreadsheet work overnight, right? And it became what it became. That's what IT and information security did for business. The problem was that IT and InfoSec never did it for themselves, right? So as they're making things easier and faster and smoother for the business, they have to do that by increasing their own complexity, IT and InfoSec. And in a common and normal sort of capitalistic approach to things, until that starts breaking, no one is going to look at it. And that's what's happening, right? Increasing complexity means increasing risk, means increase in work. And that's what we're seeing. All of this increase in load because complexity is going up, and yet no attention from the upper management at strategic level.
I think you make a great point. It's you mentioned digital transformation. Here's some of the incredible irony to me. Here you have IT organization, digital transformation. We've been using that expression for what, 10, 15 plus years, right? And who in each organization is most central to enabling those digital transformation strategies? IT. So here we are, this organization that's meant so much over the last 15 or 20 years to change the nature of not just businesses, but industries, and develop a far more digital-centric experience for how they interact with customers and how they get work done and so on. And yet these organizations are not being invested in properly. And to your point, didn't have time. I think senior executives just expected it, to your point, to work. It's always worked. It'll just work. No. You're dealing with almost exponentially more devices on the network. You're dealing with the greatest surge in cyber terrorism the world's ever seen, right? And granted, the IT industry is 50, 60 years old. So we're talking about a steep curve there. But the fact is, and I am scared of the point you made, until it breaks, right? Will it get proper attention?
Digital transformation made business digital. That was the goal. We have achieved that. Or, in many places are really close to it. What that means is that now you are a digital entity. You're no longer a business for the sake of business. You're now a digital business. What does that mean? You have to maintain hygiene, add more complex components. There are several ways to approach this, right? You can start working on simply adding people, resources. Eventually, that's right. That's not enough. You can have 1,000 people, but that's incredibly inefficient, and businesses will not take it. We are evolving as a species in many ways into technological realm that is no longer biological or mechanical, right? It's now getting to the point that we're having a hard time understanding exactly how this thing works, but it is the only way to evolve moving forward. We just have to sort of plan for it. Now, you brought up a point about automation. You cannot automate something you don't know well enough. Which means, as more complex things are, and less we know about them, the less actually we are capable of automating them. So we have to go through the process of, first we get them to be technologically based. Then we have to simplify it enough to know enough about it to be able to automate some portions of it, eventually automating more and more of them. But again, that's a conscious effort. That's a dedicated resource approach. And one other thing you said, the executives are part of the problem, but not on purpose. Almost put it like that, because again, they are also part of the business. They are well suited to manage the business the way it used to be, and because it has happened, it's happening so quickly. They're also suffering from this overload, and it's on us, on IT and IS professionals, who are much closer to the problem and understand that this is an increase in complexity, to educate up and to show them that there are tools, there are processes, there are people that, when put together in combination, can do exactly that, simplify. And so now the orientation of IT and InfoSec, more importantly than IT, is not in making sure it runs. We commoditized uptime. We are now at the point where we are trying to commoditize simplicity. If we can commoditize simplicity, we can commoditize automation. If we can commoditize automation and tie it with AI, we're going to get to the point where this thing is going to manage itself.
No doubt. Let's switch over to another interesting topic and a relevant one today. We've got this expression in the marketplace that's come up in the last 2 years, quiet quitting. Burnout, we know, is rampant amongst IT workers, and it's leading to this notion of giving up, right? Or doing the bare minimum to avoid getting, catapulted off the island, right? And that's what many are calling quiet quitting, kind of that bare minimum line. And their reasons are not for the same as their colleagues in other departments. When we speak about the IT workers are twice as likely to cite the inadequacy of the technology they use, 23% versus 10% of the average worker. So we talk about the workload, the stress, and now the inadequate resources leading to this conclusion. Well, that's fine. I'll drop my productivity and my own personal standards to a level that I just get by. That can be just as damaging. When you think about the responsibility they have to the organization, in particular, security, that they're feeling like the masters of digital transformation have been given slide rules and crayons to get the job done, right? To your point earlier, that's not sustainable.
It isn't. If you add to this the psychological factor of protectors, right? People that are doing IT work and InfoSec work in many ways, like first responders, are not doing it for the money, or maybe that's not their first priority. The first priority is protection, as well as they can do it, right? So as well as I can do something, I'm going to do it because I'm in fact protecting something or someone. And when I'm recognizing that, let's say I'm working in an ER and all I got is some Band-Aids and Neosporin, and that's all I got, defense mechanisms in my head will eventually turn off the care component, because it's going to drive me personally insane. If I know that it's not happening well enough, people are getting hurt, dying, I can't help it because the resource stack is just too low, I have to force myself to not care. And when I force myself to not care, the primary driver behind the quality of my work is gone. And now we're down to what's been there as a process, what's been there as a tool. And it's not even like quiet quitting, it's just quiet depression work.
Yeah, no doubt.
Maybe that's the way to put it.
You put that together with, being isolated, which, let's face it, remote work.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And so now I've lost a little purpose. I've got all these headwinds, and I'm feeling on my own. It's not a good formula. And this is why, this particular study calls out these issues so boldly, because the destination is not good if you don't address it. Let's talk about complexity for a second and some of the data that prompts this topic. Security pros cite the tech stack complexity as the most significant barrier, outpaces budget and lack of leadership by a significant margin. And security pros use on average 6 distinct tools to do their job. That's a lot. That's a lot to keep up with. And of course, any one of them goes down or has a problem, and you're not able to completely, do your work. Let's go a little further on this, Dmitry. Visibility, right? Even best-in-class security organizations lag in total asset visibility. So we're talking about complexity and need for tooling, and now we're talking about just understanding all of the endpoints on the network, so to speak, all of the points with which people come into the network, the tools they use to do their job. This includes the best of the best too. When we look at the graphic here, self-reported level 4 organizations, those that report the highest level of security maturity and by extension visibility, report that the visibility into the assets on their network only at 83% of the time, meaning 17% of the devices or endpoints on your network, they have no idea. They haven't even discovered and understand are they up to security standards or not. This is core to enterprise
And
security.
these are mature ones.
Exactly, and those are the best. So more generally, on average, only half the organizations believe they have adequate visibility. So you'd think your immediate hurdle would be, the sophistication of the enemy out there, the bad actors. But the reality is your first and biggest challenge is to know the full scope of the attack surface that you're protecting. Can you, as a security professional, say with confidence that you have full visibility into the devices and the network access, etc.? So again, another headwind here. Even with those that consider themselves the best of the best with best tooling and IT resources and so on, 17% of the total attack surface is missing. And that's got to weigh on an IT professional's mind as well.
Because we know this, we know for a fact that there are things we don't know. That state, for sure there is a gap over there. And we're also trained to look for the worst thing in everything, right? The risk management mindset. So of course, in that 17% black hole over there, all the worst things are happening for sure. So we're continuously driven mad by imagining all the bad things that might be happening in that environment. So that has a toll. But if you think about why this is happening, these things is interesting. Everything is interconnected, right? So we're talking about the complexity that came from this massive shift into digitally oriented world over the course of like several years, not 100 years. And so increased complexity, lack of understanding at high enough level. You said visibility. Visibility is a tactical problem. I don't see something, it's not a strategic issue. If I can't see behind a curtain, I'll go around. There's ways to deal with it. But because it is so complex, the whole thing we are lacking visibility into, and our management at high enough level has no idea, doesn't have even capacity to understand the complexity of what we're dealing with. The most basic thing, what is it that we have, is an unanswered question by vast majority of corporations. And actually, not just on equipment. You mentioned devices, right? Endpoints. That's important. That's technical. But I would go even step earlier. A lot of companies cannot tell you what business processes they have in place or what components of those business processes exist and how they tie with each other. We're not talking technology. We're talking simple flows of I do this, you do this after that. If I want to sell a thing, people have it on a napkin. Maybe they'll sort of process it and maybe can tell you we're living in the 21st century and most corporations do not know how they make money. They know somewhat, but they can't actually put it on paper. So if that's the case about business, now we overlay this over a massively complex technical world that wasn't built for this at all. Remember, internet was built for nuclear Holocaust survival, not for buying of diapers, right? So it's a thing that wasn't designed for a thing that wasn't done for a thing that wasn't done and is not considered and not understood. And now make billions today. Now go.
Yeah. Pressures are huge. Yeah.
Pressures are huge. Yeah. And it comes back to education, comes back to awareness, and comes back to good application of resources, better tools that can understand these gaps. It's interesting. We're not talking about gaps in adversary capability protection or whatever. We're talking about basic things. Hey, do I have the lights on? Is the light on? Oh, I think it's on. We're not even talking about a guy throwing in a Molotov cocktail through the window. Is my light on in the whole building? Can I even tell that or not? Do I need to go outside and look at every window? Like, this is the basics of what we're dealing with. It's pretty incredible.
All right, Dmitry, we've covered a lot of ground. We've certainly described the storm, but let's leave the listeners now with some concrete actions they can take. If you had to advise IT and security leaders on one or two of the most critical actions they can take to address what we've described, what would those be?
Strategic simplification. I would say that probably be the really important thing to start wondering about and start rolling this into your strategic planning. What can you do as a company on a strategic level to simplify everything. The more you can simplify, the more you will know. The more you will simplify, the less uncertainty you will have. The more you will simplify, the more automation capabilities you will have. And as a result, the cheaper it will be for you to run your business, the cheaper it is going to be for you to defend your business, and the cheaper it's going to be for you to make money.
What I would tag on to your advice, and you've said it 3 times, is solutions, is tools, right? Look, you think of the evolution of the business leader in a digital sense in the last 20, 30 years. The CFO has an ERP system, right, with which to do their job. They have a platform. The chief revenue officer has Salesforce automation, a platform, an expert platform to do their. The head of HR has now a platform, but just specifically for the job of managing human resource, right, and talent. We're getting to the point finally where the CIO and the CISO have a platform with which to have a full view of the attack surface, all of the endpoints, all of the network access, the service required, the digital experience monitor of the company, vulnerability management, all of that coming together in an integrated platform. So whereas right now there's 10, 12, 15 different solutions stitched together, we're driving for singular platforms that allow them to do their job finally. And I think one of the byproducts of that, Dmitry, is finally CIOs and CISOs are going to come out of the back room into the executive suite, right? To your point earlier, it ain't just about making sure the laptop gets to the chief on time anymore. It's about leading the company through these storms and being far more strategic than they've ever been.
Absolutely. Technology is the foundation, cornerstone of most business today.
No question. So listen, Dmitry, it's been a pleasure. Ton of great advice, wonderfully diverse advice and different viewpoints from you today. Thank you very much for being with me.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, be sure to subscribe and even better, share the podcast with a friend. And check out the show notes for the links to the research we talked about throughout the podcast. You can find out more about Ivanti and our solutions at Ivanti, IVANTI.com, or follow us on social media at Go Ivanti. I'm your host, Jeff Abbott, and I hope to see you next time here at Executive Summary.